It wouldn't be autumn in New England without apples picked right off the tree.
So true, Ray. I agree. I look forward to this time of year for so many reasons. Number one, means Halloween is coming soon. The air is turning crisp. I sleep better at night. Pumpkin-flavored everything.
Oh, yeah.
If you're into that. And apples this time of year, they're truly a religious experience. You have a favorite?
Macintosh apples. You?
Okay. I love Honeycrisps and Jolly Golds. Tart, sweet, so good.
There's a ton of orchards all over New England. What brings us to this one in Leominster, Massachusetts, Jeff?
So, Ray, we've come to Leominster to witness the birth of a legendary person named John Chapman, a person who's become synonymous with autumn and our favorite seasonal fruit. Now, people think they know all about him, but I assure you there's a twist coming. Now, though he was born John Chapman, the world knew him better as Johnny Appleseed. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger. Welcome to episode 365 of the New England Legends podcast.
And I'm Ray Auger. Thank you for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England one story at a time. And thank you to everyone who joined me and Jeff for our New England Legends live show this past Saturday.
Yeah.
We had such a blast with all you sharing music and stories.
We did. It was an amazing night, and we want to do it again, for sure. So I know this week's story came up at that show, but we've also received multiple emails asking when we're going to do it, so here we are. Most of our story leads come from you, so please contact us anytime through our website.
We'll go searching for John Chapman right after this word from our sponsor. Now, everyone knows about Johnny Appleseed, don't they?
Yeah, I think we all read books about him in elementary school. And I like that he got famous for his kindness, being an eccentric, and caring deeply about the environment and for people.
Now, we all know he planted apple trees all over the place.
He did, that's true, but there's a part of his story that the Disney movies and children's books always leave out. But not us, Ray. Okay, so that Macintosh apple you're eating?
Yeah.
There's seeds inside of it.
Obviously.
Right. So if you plant those seeds and water the seedlings into a tree, that might one day bear fruit.
Yes, that's how all this works. You're going to start telling me about the birds and the bees now?
No. But did you know that the fruit from the tree grown from the seeds from your apple may not be Macintosh apples at all?
Really?
Yeah. It might be some kind of sweet apple, but it will most likely be a sour-tasting crab apple.
I had no idea.
So the way we get various varieties of apples is by grafting them. If you have a tree that produces an apple that you like, you'd cut a branch from that tree, cut a notch into another apple tree, and then fuse them together, and now you get that variety of apple.
Well, it sounds like genetically modified food.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
Wow.
And we've been doing it for centuries. Every apple you've ever eaten is genetically modified. Anyway, we don't want to get too far off course here.
Right, we're talking about Johnny Appleseed here.
Right. And it's only fitting that we start at the beginning. So let's hop in the car.
Okay, we're driving down Mechanic Street in Leominster. We just passed under Interstate 190.
And we'll be making a left just ahead.
All right, where? I'm not... Oh, never mind. I guess it's obvious, huh?
It is, isn't it?
We're making a left onto Johnny Appleseed Lane.
That's right. And our destination is going to be coming up just on the left. And there it is, right by those stone pillars.
I see it. Right, there's some stone pillars next to the road, a tombstone-looking marker that reads, "Near this site was born John Chapman, known as Johnny Appleseed, September 6, 1774 to March 18, 1845, Leominster Historical Society, 1963.
Yeah, so they placed the stone in 1963, and somewhere near here, Johnny Appleseed was born.
And there's a miniature log cabin over there.
Right.
Maybe about waist high. Another historic marker behind that.
So young John Chapman was born here just before the American Revolution.
Here's a little bit more background. John was the second child of Nathaniel and Elizabeth Chapman. Young John was only 2 years old when his mother died during childbirth for the couple's second child. The infant died just a few days after his mother.
John's father was a Minuteman, and with the revolution brewing, he knew his young children would need someone to care for them. Captain Nathaniel Chapman traveled to the Springfield Arsenal and left his son and daughter in the care of his wife's family. In July of 1780, Captain Chapman married 18-year-old Lucy Cooley of Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and that couple would go on to have 10 children together. Now, at some point, John came out to Longmeadow to join his father and half-siblings.
When John was in his late teens, he persuaded his 11-year-old half-brother Nathaniel to go west with him. The two brothers lived like nomads, hopping from place to place until the two parted ways.
Now, John Chapman's history gets a little vague, but sometime in the 1790s, he finds himself in Pennsylvania learning the apple orchard business. He'd gather seeds from cider mills and continued his nomadic ways with a twist. We'll pick it up from the year 1801.
It's spring of 1801, and we're walking through the open fields of Ohio Territory. This is mostly untamed land, but settlers have changed that. Up ahead, we see the man we're looking for.
Yeah, that's him. He's not very tall, is he?
No, he's skinny and he's short.
And he's not wearing shoes. His clothes look ratty. He's got a metal cooking pot on his head for a hat and long dark hair sticking out from under it. And he's got a beard. It's not very long, but it's definitely unkempt. And he's carrying a bag with him. But that's not very large either.
No, this guy travels light.
Yeah, he does. And he's deeply religious. He's a vegetarian and believes every creature on earth is sacred. He views himself as a missionary as much as an apple guy. Looks like he's setting up a little camp for the night. Okay, well, he's using the pot from his head to heat up his dinner over the fire.
Yeah, there's something about this guy. There's endless energy coming off him. His eyes seem to sparkle whether he's looking at the fire or just walking along.
There is something about him. I can see it too.
Something just startled him. He just jumped up and is covering the fire with his cooking pot to extinguish it.
Oh, so some mosquitoes got too close to the fire and they were burning up. He said he'd rather be cold than harm a living thing. And that's just the kind of guy John Chapman is.
Chapman gets an early start to his day.
Pretty soon, Chapman finds a piece of land that would be perfect for an orchard. He finds the landowner and soon works out a deal where John will plant the apple trees and get them growing. He'll fence in the area so animals don't come and eat the leaves off the trees. And then the landowner can tend to the trees, selling the apples and selling the more mature trees as well.
It's a deal Chapman repeats over and over again. Sometimes Chapman uses his profits to purchase acres of land to start his own orchard, and then reaps all the rewards himself.
Time passes. Years go by, and Chapman now owns hundreds of acres of land across 3 different states.
So he's not really poor.
No, not at all. He dresses like a pauper, but by most standards, he's rich.
Now, even in the winter, Chapman walks barefoot. Nothing seems to slow this guy down.
And not only is he enterprising, he's devout in his faith. He never misses an opportunity to teach others, especially children, about his faith and his church. This guy is authentic in everything he does. He talks the talk, and he walks the walk.
His reputation is spreading as fast as his orchards. Pretty soon, people start calling him Johnny Appleseed. The name suits Johnny, too. Orchards and faith are his life.
His generosity, his random acts of kindness follow him everywhere he goes. Johnny had heard a local farmer intended to put down one of his injured horses, and so Johnny bought the horse. Then he purchased some acres of land nearby where the horse could recuperate. And once the horse was healed, Johnny gave the animal to another farmer who was in need, on the promise that that farmer would treat the horse kindly.
The man is a living saint. He has no wife or children. He tells people if he doesn't find his soulmate on earth, he's sure to find her in heaven.
As years turn to decades, Johnny Appleseed becomes the person behind dozens of orchards from New York through Pennsylvania, Ohio, and down into Indiana. And if you figure the seeds and trees from those orchards went on to start other orchards, it's almost uncountable how many apples have grown from the hands of Johnny Appleseed, a guy who got his start in Leominster, Massachusetts. And that brings us back to today.
Now, from remembering the children's books I read about Johnny Appleseed as a kid, I was under the impression he scattered seeds all over and the trees just grew.
Yeah, that's not quite right. I mean, he planted proper orchards, and he died a wealthy man in Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1845. And there's the twist I was telling you about earlier.
Right, that.
So remember when I told you if you plant a seed from your Macintosh apple, you likely won't get a sweet apple from that tree?
Yep.
Well, it was true back then, too. But do you know what you can do with a bunch of non-sweet apples?
What?
You can turn them into juice, let them ferment, and then you got...
alcohol.
That's right. You've got hard cider. That's what those apples are perfect for. All those Johnny Appleseed trees got a lot of people pretty drunk. Now, before the early 1900s, apples were mainly used to make alcoholic cider. Only after the 1900s did orchardists get serious about grafting sweet-tasting apples that we've come to love today.
So not only was Johnny Appleseed spreading kindness and good cheer, he was getting people loaded. And I respect that.
I'll drink to that. And that brings us to After the Legend, where we take a deeper look at this week's story.
After the Legend is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. Our patrons keep this train running, and we'd love to have you join us there. Our patrons get early ad-free access to new episodes. They get access to our entire archive of shows. They get discounts on tickets and merch, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear, all for just $3 per month. It's only a little, but it helps us out a lot. Head to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up.
And to see some pictures of Johnny Appleseed's birth monument and some other related images, click on the link in our episode description, or go to our website and click on episode 365. I have an apple tree in my yard.
You do?
I do.
Is it yours, or was it there when you...
Nope, I bought it from Home Depot, if I'm being honest. And here's the thing. Let's say you have an apple tree that makes the kind of fruit, it produces the kind of fruit you like, sweet-tasting apple. You need another tree nearby that can cross-pollinate with it, or it won't bear any fruit.
Really?
So this tree that I got, from Home Depot, it's grafted 4 times with 4 different kinds of apples. So it's got forks that produce different varieties of apples, and then they can cross-pollinate each other. So the bees come and take the nectar, take the things around, and then you get apples. Absolutely delicious.
That's crazy.
They're not, because I don't use pesticides or anything. Yeah. They've got spots on them, and they look a little ugly.
Sure.
But the taste is phenomenal.
And is it the same on every year, each branch or each wing or whatever you call it?
This year I didn't get any.
Okay.
Last year, because of all the rain we had, I got so much that one of the main branches, it broke under the weight of all the apples. Wow. It just crashed to the ground. It was so tragic.
How's the cleanup on that when you have an apple tree and they just fall to the ground? Is that kind of a pain?
I pick them and eat them.
Right, but some fall. I mean, if you go to a regular orchard, they're all over the ground.
Yeah, I have one tree. So, it's not that bad. It's really not. But I learned a lot about how to, you got to prune it right. Any branches that grow down, you got to prune it. But if you want, and I love apples. Apples is
me too.
That's my favorite fruit, like hands down. And in the fall, it's just, did your family go apple picking?
Yeah, we had one right down the street, Brookfield Orchards.
Yeah, right. So we go every year. We've gone every year for
we used to
decades.
I wish we'd do it again. The rest of the family's not thrilled about, I shouldn't say that.
Dude, force them. Because it's force them. Be like, we're going.
Force them.
Force them.
Said, force them.
Yeah, no, force them.
Force them.
Yeah.
I know. We used to go when they were kids, just for the photos and all that.
Of course.
Molly loves blueberry picking and strawberry picking, so that's her jam.
Of course.
Jam.
I get it.
I wish I did that on purpose. But
I get it. So we go every year, and we'll make like an apple pie. Key to a great apple pie, mix up the varieties of apples. Don't use just one kind.
Yeah.
Use a bunch of different ones.
Good to know. Noted.
So we make apple pies. We do, we make, and what's great is because you buy so many, you can't possibly eat them all, but then you can make your own cider because we have a juicer. And then, and the way you make cider is it's the way you blend the apples. So every farmer's recipe for cider is like, 2/3 John of Gold, 1/3, whatever. Like they have their own special recipe that blends them, or you make apple sauce, which is easy too.
I can do that. I don't like the consistency.
Oh, well, fair. But
I don't like soft apples either, like warm soft apples. So I'm not a huge apple pie fan, but I love apples.
Well, there you go. So, so these orchards, it's a much more modern notion than people think of like sweet tasting apples. Now, some trees, just if you had a bunch of apple trees all over, wild, like they had just grown on their own, a couple of them would be awful crab apples. And then once in a while you got lucky and you're like, oh my gosh, this one's delicious. Yeah. Like this one is very sweet. And
so a crab apple tree is just an apple tree
that you don't
hasn't been grafted. Okay,
right.
Because I always thought a crab apple tree was separate from an apple tree, but it's the same thing.
Yeah,
you just have to tend to a crab apple tree to make the real apples
early on.
Right,
yeah, you got to get to it, and the grafting is so simple. You just take a knife and you cut a young branch from the tree that produces good fruit that you like, and you just cut a little notch into the trunk of the new tree, and then you wrap it with like a gauze or something, and they'll fuse together and grow together.
Crazy.
I know.
Nature is so crazy.
Well, that's humans figured that out, right? That like some mad scientist was just like, I need more of these apples. I'm going to graft it. And that's how you get new varieties too, is like grafting different kinds together and mixing them. So there's been hundreds and thousands of varieties of apples.
Right.
We only know about like the big ones that you see in the grocery store every week, but there's countless that they only existed in like one orchard.
Yeah.
Like some farmer made them.
Right.
There's one, there's an orchard, I think Bolton Orchards.
Sure. Yeah.
Has a variety that's unique to them.
Do they?
And all the locals are like, you got to get those. I forget what what the particular variety is,
Yeah.
but they're just like, it's only here. And they still tend to those trees. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, so I remember too, Johnny Appleseed, you just pictured him tossing seeds as he was walking.
With
right?
his little clanky hat.
With his clanky hat, and he would just reach into a bag and throw seeds off the side of the road and keep walking. And
It was a picture book.
Yeah, and the trees would just magically grow, and they would produce apples.
And the trees are smiling.
Yeah.
Because here comes Johnny.
And meanwhile, most of those apples would have been good for booze. And the stories never go.
I love that.
Yeah. It's just like,
Because you're thinking that, back then, healthy eating off the land, you know, that's what the trees were meant for. Nope, boozing it up.
Yeah, these aren't good to eat. You're going to want to go ahead and squish them into juice, let them ferment, and then we're going to have a great old time. So who knows? But
So I'm sorry. I'm trying to look up the unique apple that they have at Bolton Spring Farm.
yeah.
Or maybe it's not Bolton Spring Farm, but
I think
it
it's
is.
Bolton Orchards, I thought.
Yeah, this one says Bolton Spring Farm, but there is another farm in Bolton, and I'm sure there's plenty of farms.
Right.
But I don't think that's the farm you were thinking of.
Yeah. Maybe.
Because this is something that we could post later, obviously.
Sure.
I
right.
get something in my head and I got to figure out what it is.
Fair enough.
Or we could just call. Let's call right now.
But I love the story of Johnny Appleseed. And I forget what exit it is off the Mass Pike, but there's a rest area. And as you're walking in to use the bathroom or McDonald's or whatever, there's a little statue of Johnny Appleseed right out front. And, we've certainly cashed in as his birthplace. And he's an American folk hero.
Absolutely.
Real guy from Leominster, Mass.
Please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts and tell a friend or two about our show. That's how we grow. And the more people in our community, the more story leads that come in. Please also join us in our New England Legends Facebook group and download our free New England Legends app in your app store so you can check out these places for yourself.
Would like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our Patreon patrons. And our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The Bazaar is closer than you think.